Hi, welcome to the first session of VBA. We have two main objectives from this session. One is learning how to record a macro, and the second is writing basic programs so that you start understanding the structure of VBA programs. For someone who is new to VBA, recording a macro is the best place to start understanding VBA programs and also to see how your actions in an Excel file are converted into programming statements by VBA. Now, while covering these topics, we will also discuss objects, their properties, their methods, and then we'll also touch upon declaring a variable and the different data types which are present, the advantages of declaring a variable, and some rules around declaring them. I will keep moving between PowerPoint slides and the Excel file, and I'll be sharing these slides at the end of each video so that you can then play with the VBA programs at your end and also have some reference documents. But before moving on to how to record a macro or how to write a macro, the first question which may have come in your mind is where to write a VBA code. So let's get started with it. I'll now move on to the Excel file. So I've got this file, VBA file open. Now, if you go to the developer tab and click on Visual Basic, now this has a shortcut as well, Alt plus F11. So whenever you click on it, this new window opens up. This second window, which sort of has opened up now when you clicked on Visual Basic, is called the Visual Basic Editor. It has got different components. So if you look at these bars, the file and these buttons over here, these are called the menu bars and the toolbar. And they've got a lot of commands which we can use while we are programming in VBA. So for example, if I look at file over here, it has options like save the file, import file, export file, print, or close and return to the Microsoft Excel file. Similarly, if you look over here at debug, it has got options which help you in debugging a program. So apart from this toolbar, I've got this project window over here and I've got this notepad sort of, if I may call it, over here. So if I look at project window itself, so what this tells me is that right now there is one Excel file which is open and this particular Excel file has just got one sheet in it which is named sheet 1. So sheet 1 has its own code module, so I can write codes for sheet 1 itself over here. If I want to write some codes related to the entire workbook, then I can write in this workbook as well. But usually we do not write in either of them. So for writing a code, what we do is we go to insert and we insert a module. So this is where we write most of our codes. Now you may be asking a question that sheet 1 program editor over here looks exactly the same as this workbook program editor, and that is also same as module 1. But why do we write our VBA programs in module 1 and not in sheet 1 or this workbook? Now it's considered a good programming technique or standard if you write programs in modules rather than writing over here in sheets or workbook. And there are definitely benefits of writing codes in modules. So for example, if you write a code in sheet 1 code module and you accidentally delete sheet 1, then all of your code which is there in sheet 1 code module will get deleted. One of the other advantages of writing codes in module is that you can import or export modules to other Excel files also. But there are times when we write codes in sheets modules or this workbook module, when we have VBA programs which are just dealing with specific sheets. So for example, if I had more than one sheet over here and I just wanted to write a VBA program for sheet 1, then I will write it in sheet 1 code module. Whereas if I have a VBA program which is dealing with the entire workbook, then I will write it over here. There are some programs which are called event handler programs, and this is something which we will discuss in the later sessions. So think of an event as an action. Whenever you do anything in an Excel file, it is considered as an action. So if I want to write a VBA program which is based on some action happening in sheet 1, then I will write those event handler codes in sheet 1 code module. Similarly, if I want to have event handler codes which are dealing with the entire workbook, say opening a workbook or closing a workbook, then I will write those programs in this workbook code module. So now that we have discussed where we write a VBA program, we'll now move on to the main topic, which is how to record a macro. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint now. So as you can see over here, when you go to the developer tab and your cursor is on record macro, so this states each of the commands you perform will be saved into the macro so that you can play them back again. So as I said, for someone who's relatively new to VBA, record a macro is the starting point, as then you can see whatever actions you do in an Excel file, how they translate into VBA programming statements. So let's get back to the Excel file now. So before actually recording a macro, I'll just click on this and we'll see what sort of pop-up we get. So it gives you options like what sort of name do you want for your macro. So let's keep it first macro. So for this particular option, shortcut key, we can give a letter over here to call the macro. So similar to the shortcuts which we have, say for copy or cut. So for copy, we've got Control plus C, or for cutting something, we've got Control plus X. Similarly, you can write anything over here, say P. So when you press Control plus P, it will run first macro. But let's just keep this blank for now. Description over here, it can be left blank, but if you want to add some description to your VBA macro, then yeah, you can do it over here. When you click on OK, and before stopping the recording of the macro, whatever actions you perform in an Excel file, they will be recorded in the VBA program. So let's click on OK. So now whatever actions I will do, they will keep on getting recorded in the VBA program, and you can stop recording from here. Let's say I want to take my cursor to D4. I select D4 and now I'll click on stop recording. So let's see how this transforms into a VBA code. So I'll go to the program editor now. I'll click on Visual Basic. So as you can see, we had named our macro as first macro, and we just did one action, that is we selected cell D4. So over here, all VB has done is it has referred to cell D4 by using range, and then all it has done is select this particular cell. So now let's go back to our pack. So as we had seen in our first recorded program, that how VBA translates selecting a particular cell is using the range keyword over here. So for example, if I want to select all the cells between A1 to B6, so this will be my command. So if I write range A1 to B6, let's see how this will translate over there. So let me just escape this and copy this. Now I'll go back to my Visual Basic editor and I'll replace this with it. So when I'll run this, you can run the program from here. This is run sub or user form. When you click on run, so as you can see now all the cells between range A1 to B6 have got selected. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint. Similarly, you can select two ranges also, so it's not always necessary that all the cells need to be together. Then you can also select the entire columns. So if you look at range A to column E, so we'll select these 5 columns A, B, C, D, E, and we'll select all the cells of these columns. If I look at range 1 to 3, that is used for selecting the first 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. So we'll end up selecting all the cells in these rows. Now just like we've got range over here, we can also use cells also. So for cells, the syntax would be cells followed by row number and then column number. Over here it was just the name of the cell. So for example, cells 2 comma 4, which is basically my second row and my fourth column. So my fourth column is D. So this will translate into my range as D2. Similarly, we can use range and cells together. So for example, this will translate cells 1 1 will be A1 and cells 4 4 will be D4. So this will translate as range A1 colon D4. Now let's talk about selecting cells. So in the first example, we saw that for selecting a cell, or when we moved the cursor to cell D4, VBA used a keyword dot select. So over here we are just selecting one cell name, say A1, or D4. Over here we can select multiple cells just like what we have seen previously. So over here we are referring to multiple cells. If I just put a dot select after them, then I'll end up selecting all of them. Now in the first two examples where we are selecting one cell and multiple cells, we are passing cell addresses which we need to select. But one of the advantages or why VBA is used across industry is for its automation. And when we are doing automation, we may not always be sure of which cell we are referring to, or which row we are referring to, or which column number we are referring to. So in the third example, I've got my row number as dynamic. So my column name, I'm aware of my column name, and my row number is my macro name. Ampersand tells VBA that we are dynamically sending some value. Similarly, if the column number is dynamic, column name over here is the macro name or the variable name which I'm going to pass on dynamically, and row number is what I'm aware of. So we will look at one example where we will be dynamically sending row numbers later in the session.